What I love about what you do is you seemingly have no fear about speaking to, the camera, to your
No,
phone, and you've grown your business that way, right? And
correct.
that is actually my biggest fear. What the hell?
Hmm.
Give me some
I know.
tips, Jedi.
Yeah.
Is this a Gen X? Is this a Gen X fucking millennial
No.
deal? Or I feel like a boomer here.
No, it's just reps. It's reps and reps and reps and reps. So you just actually made a really important point, which you answered the question that you asked me, which is what is the difference between the person that is afraid and still does the thing versus the majority that have that same fear as that person but don't do the thing, right?
Yeah.
The difference is a strong enough why, a strong enough destination that they're going towards, a clear idea of what the other side of fear looks like for them. So for you, you saw that speaker instead of just, hey, I want to be good at speaking. You saw that speaker and that speaker changed your life and you saw how they moved the crowd and how they could use their words to move people and to elicit emotion and response and action and change lives. And you could do that at scale. So you said, that will be me. I will be that. So now the only thing between you and that person is just repetition. So there's actually a new framework that I've been working on, and it applies to a lot of different business, and it actually applies to this very well. So I'm gonna, I think, debut this on your podcast here,
Go
which is
for it.
the topic of it's a topic of a lot of my keynotes that I'm working on right now, and it's called the CVC framework. So it's clarity, volume, and consistency. I didn't even talk about it in the book because after the book finished, I came up with this because I was trying to find the different bits and pieces from all of these thousands of millionaires that I've spoken to. And for people that
Mm.
don't understand the context of this, like long story short, I was working a corporate job, making $250,000 a year as a sales rep. And then in 2022, through buying real estate and starting up my own side business through the podcast, I was able to leave that job, go travel around the world full time for 8 months and build my own business, which we just hit our millionth dollar last Sunday. So I can
So good,
say
man.
that not only did we do the thing, but we built it from zero to $1 million in 13 months and 18 days. Who's counting? And now we just launched another business on top of it, which will hit $1 million mark in 6 to 9 months. So we launched one seven-figure business. Now we're going to about to launch the second here. So it's six-figure right now. And so the framework applies to buying real estate as much as it applies to launching a business, as much as it applies to learning how to freaking spin a basketball on your finger or get on stage. So it's
Mm.
CVC, clarity, volume, consistency. So let's start with the most important C, capital C, clarity. Clarity is really, really important because it's this word that everybody's familiar with but doesn't truly understand. So what I've tried to do over speaking to all of these millionaires, I'm like, how do you operate? How are you successful but different from the average person? What is it about you? Because Trav, me and you
Mm.
are in a lot of the same rooms. They're not that much smarter most of the time.
Not at all.
10% of the time, you're like, you're a genius, dude. I'm nowhere near as smart as you. But most of the time, it's just a guy or a girl that stuck to it and went through it and figured it out. So I was like, what's the difference between you and your process versus the majority, right? The 99%. So this is what it's boiled down to. So I have taken the time to define clarity into three different sections. So I have labeled clarity as directional, sequential, and tactical. None of this is in the book, but the book still rocks and you guys should get it and leave
Love
me a
it.
5-star rating and review, and then also leave Trav one on this podcast. But so to break down the clarity, right? Directional, sequential, and tactical. So everybody focuses on the tactical, right? What
Mm.
do I need to do? That's how, capital H, how. What do I need to do to get to where I want to go, right? But the problem is they haven't done the proper order of the clarity journey. We begin with directional, then sequential, then tactical. So directional is, where am I going and why? Where are we heading? We're in the car on the highway. Where are we driving the car to? Right? That is directional clarity. Because how the hell are you supposed to figure out what you're supposed to do when you don't know what the result that you're looking for is? For instance, example, if you want six pack abs, that is a good simplified definition of what you want. I want a six pack. I don't have a six pack. I need to lose weight. Cool. Directional clarity. That leads us to sequential clarity. How fast do you want to lose the weight? Do I want to have a six pack in 12 weeks or in 12 months? If you want it in 12 weeks, the tactics that you're going to take are going to be completely different than the tactics that you take to get it in 12 months. So then that is what yields the tactical clarity. Because once we know where we're trying to go and how fast we're trying to get there, then the tactics magically appear
Yeah.
because we've got it defined. So if I'm in New York and I want to get to LA, Los Angeles in America, and I say I want to get to LA. Okay, cool. Bunch of effing ways to get to LA. You want to take a train, a plane, a bus? Like, what do you want to do? You want to Uber? Do you want to bike? I want to get to LA tomorrow morning. Okay, you got to fly. So now you start looking at flights because you have clarity. So that is the first thing that you do is now we're figuring out directional, sequential, and tactical clarity. So for instance, for a lot of people that are listening to this, and what we do is we help six-figure high performers leave corporate jobs. We replace corporate with cash flow, right? So a normal, for instance, that your audience will relate with is, I need to replace $10,000 through real estate and business so that I can quit my job, travel around the world, build my own business. That's my jam, right? So say, okay, cool. Hell yeah. You want $10,000. Let's start there. Why? And then we validate it. Do you actually need $10,000? Let's say that you do. Sick.
Mm.
How fast do you need to get to $10,000? Because you getting there in 2 years versus 2 months versus 20 years are completely different aggressiveness and tactics, right? The aggression will start changing. So once we figure out all of this, then it gets to okay, now we get to the tactics because if you want to do $10,000 in 2 years, then you need to be investing in this asset class, or this asset class. And we narrow it down. So now it comes to the ultimate game of volume, right? So now it's like, okay, here's what I need to do. Here's the tactics that I need to do. Let me validate that I'm taking the proper volume of these actions in order to accomplish it. So clarity and volume is where most people mess this up because then they could do the thing, and they could be doing the right thing, but they're not doing the proper volume. So for instance, I was a sales rep in my corporate job. And in that corporate job, what I would be doing is I would be making cold calls. A lot of people make 2 cold calls, and then they'll piss around on their phone, 5 calls, 10 calls. I got my numbers down to where I'm like, if I make 25 calls a day, 125 calls a week, I will get the proper amount of appointments required for me to hit $250,000 a year. It all boiled down to that one metric at the proper volume. Once you have the proper volume and the proper tactics, then all you have to do is the game that's the hardest for all of us entrepreneurs and humans, which is the waiting game, consistency. So clarity, volume, consistency is how you pull it off. And an example of consistency working in the inverse, where it's irritating, is me with
Yep.
my podcast. I wanted 1 million downloads for my podcast, and I wanted it in my first year. And I said, "This is what I'm going to do. Let's go. I'm going to make a podcast every day." And I made a really good podcast, and I did it every day, 5 episodes a week. Let's do it. But it still wasn't enough, which means I need to be patient. And I need to just keep on the process. So I'll stop there. That is the CVC framework: clarity, volume, and consistency. If you figure that out, you can knock out anything.